Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. My name is Racodactylus, or Racodactylus. Either pronunciation is fine. I go by many names. And I will be running the first Wild Arms game today. So we can go ahead and get started as soon as I hit new game. Yeah, I'll need some luck. So wish me luck. All right, 3, 2, 1, start. So yeah, this is Wild Arms. It's a JRPG that was released in 1997. At least the North American release was 1997. The Japanese release was a few months earlier in 1996. And what sets the Wild Arm franchise apart from other JRPG series and franchises is the sort of increasing prominence of a sort of spaghetti western aesthetic in the game. You know, I think it sort of reaches its peak at that with Wild Arms 3, but you still get quite a bit of the Western aesthetic, the spaghetti Western aesthetic in the first Wild Arms, especially with the music, which I absolutely adore. So to start the run off, we start by selecting one of our 3 main protagonists. We start with Rudy because he's the first one that's by default selected, and also his is the opening sequence that you tend to reset on the most. So, you know, best to start with that one. I am going to need Rudy's name, so when that's ready.
Yep, Rudy's name is going to be Roddy, R-O-D-D-Y.
All right, and that is the Japanese name for the character. So we start with Roddy here, and he's helping out in a... Thank you, NPCs, for just being perfectly in the way. And he's helping out in this little backwater village called Surf Village, and we're actually going to quickly just grab that power apple. Actually, real quick, I'm going to show you all something cool. This chicken here, not a chicken. It's actually a mushroom. So that's fun. And then we're going to switch over to the character Jack. And we're going to do his sequence first. This is a little bit more of a marathon-safe and friendly route, and a beginner-friendly route. So if you want to get started learning the Wild Arms run, something approximating what I'm about to do is preferred until you get used to it. But we're also going to need Jack's name in, now-ish.
Right, Jack's name is going to be Emiko.
All right.
E-M-I-K-O.
All right, cool. So let's go ahead and name him that. Then we'll actually see why that was one of the incentive names. So he's here at this temple, this sort of ruined temple, and he's asked to sort of input a passcode, and so he decides to just put in his name, and the password for this temple is actually Emiko. So if you name Jack Emiko, it says, hey, we found a match, you can go into the temple, and then he decides to start playing around with the opening, or with the panel a little bit more, and then his sequence starts as it normally does if you name him anything else. And no, Nori, Rudy's name is not Roddy, although I should have thought of that. Also, hey everybody in the chat, I'll try my best to read chat as we go along as well. So thank you all so much for the well wishes of luck. I'll actually kind of need it, because the first about 30-ish minutes of the run is pretty heavily RNG, and then about the middle portion of the game is mostly skill and execution, and then the end of the game is this weird combination of like the weirdest kind of RNG and execution. So gonna need a little bit of luck on my side to pull this one off. That said, I will be doing quite a few safety saves in order to anticipate bad luck coming. So Jack's opening sequence starts with him sort of raiding this ruin for treasure. He's motivated by a search for weapons, search for power, because he's more or less on a quest for revenge. Unfortunately, these ruins have already been pretty much picked clean by previous treasure hunters. So there's really nothing in the treasure chests. So we're just trying to get out of here as soon as possible. And the reason we're doing this sort of marathon safer or friendlier beginner route by starting with Rudy, picking up the power apple, and then switching over to Jack is because Jack is strong enough to be able to one-shot all of the monsters in his opening dungeon. Let's not fall off edges there. That's a time waster. Whereas Rudy is not. So we want to start with Jack and then finish his opening sequence, and then we're going to take him to the very first town of the game, or the very first sort of like progression town of the game, the Kingdom of Adelheid, and we're going to use Jack to purchase weapons for the other main characters in the game. And then when we switch back over to Rudy, it turns out all the characters share an inventory, so the stronger weapon that we're going to get for Rudy will help him to defeat monsters in his opening dungeon. So that's why it's a little bit safer and more consistent. The way you'd want to sort of normally do the run is even much more RNG than this route. There we go. You just start with Rudy, and then you just hope that you can run away from all the monsters that you encounter in his opening dungeon. And then you'd, finish that one and then do kind of the same thing with Jack's. But for consistency, we're going to take the monster fights and kill them and everything. And so we're actually going to start with a safety save because there is an incredibly rare, but still non-zero chance that we die in the next room because of getting ambushed by a particularly nasty encounter. It is rare. I don't actually think it's happened to me yet, but, marathons are where things happen for the first time. And actually, this is kind of that encounter. So there's actually an encounter here with that skeleton and a little green monster called a pillbug. And if you're ambushed by that encounter, and the pillbug doesn't run away and also hits you, the skeleton and the pillbug can do quite a bit of damage to you. And then on the first turn that you have control, they can outturn you and then kill you. So we actually got lucky just getting ambushed by the one skeleton, because when we defeat a skeleton, that gives us enough experience to level up to make the rest of this a little safer. So the skeletons are surprisingly strong and have terrific sound effects. And yeah, RPGC, I do like to jinx myself in these marathon runs, don't I? Unlike the other two main characters we start with, there's no boss at the end of Jack's opening sequence. He sort of wanders around these ruins until he gets to this ancient, very advanced technology from the Elo people. And I only recently learned that it's actually pronounced Elo. ELW in this game is pronounced Elo. Because I am not very knowledgeable about the games that I run. I just enjoy them a lot and learn the speedrun for them. So what are you gonna do? I'm shrugging as if I have a camera on me and you can see that, so I guess I'll try to talk and describe my affectations where necessary. But this ancient advanced technology by the Elo people is transmitting a message to Jack, and actually that character there is Emiko, the leader of the Elo people, and who serves as the password for the memory temple that we're in. So we would meet him kind of later in the game, like way later in the game, but that's if you play casually, and we're not playing casually, we're speedrunning, and we're speedrunning a category known as any % no ace, or no arbitrary code execution. So we're going to be doing some very, very interesting glitches that allow us to skip so much of the game that we're not going to see a lot of really, really cool things that are in Wild Arms. But still get through the game as quickly as possible and just have a lot of fun, because the parts that we are going to see are still pretty cool and interesting, and the music's still fantastic. So we finish with Jack's opening sequence, and when you finish a character's opening sequence, you get the option to either retain playing as that character or switch over to another character. The only other times you can switch over to another character at this point in the game is by accessing the save point birds that are in towns, like I did with Rudy at the start to switch over to Jack. But for right now, we actually want to stay as Jack before switching back over to Rudy, because we need to take Jack to the opening sort of progression town, the Adelheid. And let's see if we can get them. Nope. It is possible to get to Adelheid without an encounter, but I didn't get that lucky. I am close enough, though, that it's very unlikely that I'll get a second encounter. But, depending on your threat for the area, you'll get anywhere between 0 or 2 encounters on the way. And we leveled up again, so that's actually kind of nice. It means I don't need to heal him again before taking him into the next dungeon. Anyway, we go to Adelheid, and this is why we started with Rudy to pick up the Power Apple. It's because Jack needs money, and the Power Apple sells for a bit. Actually, so does that Arctic Blade that dropped from that thing, and so does the Light Shroom that I decided to show off, so we're actually really good for money. So we want that. There we go. And now that we've bought a lot of things, now we can take Jack over to the Save Bird and change over to Rudy. Now we're back with Rudy, and I don't know why I'm not dashing. That's very, very silly of me. And we go talk to the mayor. We're sort of looking for more work to do to help out the village, and he says, hey, thank you for all the work that you've done. Here's an infinite number of bombs, which, I don't know, is a pretty good reward. The bombs are a tool, and each of the characters throughout the game get multiple tools, up to 4 for each character, although I think 1 is optional for each character, sort of 3 required in the game, and then 1 that I believe is optional for each of the characters. And these are to help you solve puzzles and navigate through the game and sort of accomplish other sorts of tasks outside of combat and on the overworld and so on. So Rudy starts with the bombs. As we try to leave, another villager comes in and exclaims to the mayor that a child has sneaked into the berry cave, which is very dangerous because there are monsters. And the mayor's like, oh no, what will we do? We don't want to panic the town, so let's kind of keep this quiet while we figure out what to do. And then Rudy is just like, nah, I'm going to go be a hero. And he goes into the berry cave, and he's going to go rescue the child. So now we enter the berry cave. And we're going to take all the fights rather than risk running away. It is conceptually a lot faster to try to run away, but it is approximately a coin flip to run away from each encounter. Running away, or rather the success for running away, is dependent on your character's level, the sort of monster level of the encounter formation that you're in, and your character's luck stat, which at the start of the game is randomly determined. You can either have bad luck, normal luck, or good luck, and your character can, throughout the game, randomly change anywhere between worst luck all the way up to best luck. Obviously, best luck is better for running away, but we don't actually have a way to control that at this point, so running away is still approximately a coin flip for the encounters in Rudy's dungeon at level 1, and rather than risk taking a bunch of damage failing to run away and wasting all that time, we're just going to take encounters as we can. And actually, with a little bit of luck and the encounters that we get along the way, we might actually be able to end up at level 2 for the boss, which kind of salvages a little bit of time, but isn't necessary. You usually do take the boss at level 1. But we're just sort of running through the cave. We're going to ignore that sign there that says no running across the bridge, you'll attract bats. Yo, welcome in, high spirits and raiders. Hope you're doing well. But we're going to run across this rock bridge here, except for a particular part of the rock bridge. We're going to walk across that little bit before we start running again, because the sign that says no running or you'll attract bats is an indicator that there's a trigger point that if you are dashing over, will attract bats to Rudy. And this is a game mechanic. It's a status effect called Curse. And the cursed status effect severely reduces the amount that you need to be walking before you get into a random encounter. So really bad for speedrunning to get into more random encounters. Also, if we get into another random encounter with goblins, I will be quiet when I have Rudy kill one, because they make the sound effect of a cat when you hit them. And I think I've been talking over all the goblins I've been killing, so you might not have heard it. Ah, here we go. So there's some goblin cats, and hey, we're level 2. That makes this a lot safer. We're going to use Rudy's infinite bombs to not just bypass barriers through the cave, but we're also going to bomb that little secret wall there that has treasure chests in it that have 1 power apple, 1 hardy apple, and 1 agility apple. Apples in this game serve as the permanent stat boosting item. And throughout the game, we're going to use over 3,000 of them. So it's nice that we can start by getting 1 each. And we'll actually get the 4th kind of apple in Cecilia's opening sequence. But we're gonna go from 1 to thousands real quick throughout the course of the run. Because of glitching and cheating. So we get to the end of the berry cave, and the kid tells us that he was in here to get this special healing berry to heal his father, so we're like, all right, yeah, we'll take it, why not, you're doing a nice thing. But unfortunately, that holy berry was keeping in place a seal that was holding back some really strong monsters. And so now that we've basically broken the seal, it's causing an earthquake around this area of Filgaia that will have some repercussions after all of the characters' opening sequences are done. But we escort the kid out of the berry cave, and the town realize, like, hey, we're going to go in there and as a group, rescue the kid. So they're happy that we rescued the kid, too. And then everybody's like, all right, let's go back to town. And then a big old monster attacks. Yeah, that is a lot of apples. Thankfully, cheating makes it very easy to get them. So this is the first boss of the speedrun. The strategy for it is pretty simple. We're going to use Rudy's special ability, which is a gun, on the boss because it has 800 hit points, and Rudy just doesn't do that much with his normal attack. He'll do somewhere in the neighborhood of like 40, 45-ish, whereas his hand cannon will be doing about 100. Especially at level 2, it'll be doing over 100. The boss, on the other hand, is going to do one of 2 things every turn. He'll either do a regular attack like that, which is something that we can counterattack, or he'll do his special ability called Rotting Breath, which does about 20% of our maximum health in damage to us. And I'm trying to now mentally math when I need to be healing, because it's been a while. So I think, for safety's sake, I'll heal here. And yeah, this boss got translated or localized as zombie, but I believe in the original Japanese its name would more literally translate to something like a shambling beast or a rotting beast. Something like that. But yeah, for this boss fight and for the boss fight at the end of Cecilia's opening sequence, we really want to see regular attacks. They do less damage than the boss's special attacks, and it gives our characters a chance to counterattack. But we dealt with the zombie, we shot it up a bunch, and now unfortunately the town is scared of us. You see, firearms in this game are it's actually where the arm in Wild Arms come from. It's an acronym that stands for Ancient Relic Machine, and it's a forbidden power like that NPC just said. It's sort of a harbinger of danger and all this other stuff. And so the town is now very scared of us, despite the fact that we were helping around in town. So now they're going to basically put us on a little, judgment and decide that for the good of the village, they're going to banish us from the village. So, very, sort of sad opening, no good deed goes unpunished kind of thing, and it's in keeping with Rudy's character arc throughout the game. Each of the 3 main characters represents, or their arc is supposed to be representative of a key virtue. For Rudy, his character arc is centered around the concept of hope, because he starts off the game not really knowing his place in the world and feeling a sense of hopelessness as a result, and this sort of incident doesn't help out at all, being banished from a town despite helping out. Jack's character is going to represent the virtue of courage, or at least his character arc is going to lead him to that, because his story starts out very differently. There's actually a sort of opening sequence. Hey, chicken bonks. There's an opening sequence if you stay at the title screen long enough that actually does a little bit of backstory for Jack that reveals that he sort of was forced to run away from a very great danger, leaving his love interest behind. And he feels like a coward, and so he's seeking power so that he can exact revenge. And so his character arc is going to be confronting those issues. And the character of Cecilia is going to be... actually, speaking of Cecilia, it now would be a good time to cut off the naming incentive for Cecilia, because we're going to be naming her in about 2 or 3 minutes.
Well, actually, instead of cutting it off, you've got 2 or 3 minutes to break the 3-way tie on that if you'd like to donate to take this and towards that naming poll.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
To do so.
Yeah, feel free. You got a couple minutes to snipe the name for Cecilia. But Cecilia's character is going to represent the sort of virtue of love. Not necessarily romantic love, but sort of self-care, self-love. Her journey is motivated by a desire to be loved for who she is, rather than for the role that she plays as the princess of the kingdom of Adelheid. She feels that people only like her and want anything to do with her because of her role as the princess. So her journey is about learning to love others so that she can learn to love herself and therefore open herself up to being loved by others. But now we're going to need Cecilia's name, because that's going to pop up at the next text box.
Okay, we have a tie for Cecilia's name. I didn't see anything coming to break the tie, so I'll leave that up to you. Out of the choices that were listed were Antares, I think it's pronounced, Lilka, and Opal.
Okay, I'll go with the name Antares. Antares is the name of a regular viewer on my channel who really enjoys the Wild Arms game, so I wanted to select that as a naming incentive, just out of kindness to my community who's been so supportive of me. So we've got Antares.
While we're in the cutscene, can I read off a donation and talk about the charity a little bit?
Absolutely.
All right, so I did see we got a $5 donation. This is not me stalling to get the page to come back up. Thank you. We got a $5 donation from Tripler0. It says, small donation, but take this, please. And speaking of take this, Speedrun Ragnarok 2022 is proud to support Take This again this year. Take This is a mental health nonprofit, and their main mission is to inform the gaming community about mental health issues, provide education on different disorders and prevention techniques, and reduce the overall stigma around mental illness. For more information, you can go to takethis.org. If you'd like to donate to any of our naming incentives or any of the daily prize pools, which today includes a Hamtaro Perler for our next run, Hamtaro Ham Heartbreak, you can do so by using the donate command in chat to get the link to the Tiltify page.
Yeah, please, everyone, if you can afford to donate, this is a great cause. But yeah, so we start out Cecilia's opening sequence. She's having this conversation with a disembodied spirit, and then we sort of fade into her appearing to be daydreaming in class. So the voice is telling her that she's the chosen one and that she's basically going to be going on a quest soon to fulfill her destiny. And then she sort of wakes up from her daydream in class, and her classmates sort of poke fun at her for spacing out during class and remind her that, well, if she's about to be leaving the Abbey, finishing her studies and going back to Adelheid, she should say goodbye to everyone. So when we go around and talk to various NPCs, we end up talking to an NPC who had made a mess in the library and has asked us to go pick up Cecilia's next tool called the Pocket Watch, which is time travel magic. which will allow you, when you use it, to basically reset the room that you're in, which is really great if you, say, mess up solving a puzzle or attempting to solve a puzzle. So it can be a real useful item when you're playing the game casually. Along the way, we go and talk to another teacher who gives us an item called a crest graph, which is how this game does its magic system. Cecilia being the magic user of the party. It's an interesting way to do magic. Whereas a lot of other games may do magic by learning it through leveling up or something like that, or buying magic at shops, as we saw in the Final Fantasy I Pixel Remaster race just a few hours ago. This game, you teach Cecilia magic using crest graphs. You bind spells to the crest graphs, and you can unbind the magic that she currently knows and get the crest graphs back. So at any point in the game when we have access to a magic shop, you can just completely relearn or rearrange the spells that Cecilia knows, which is really, really useful for the speed run because we kind of know what spells are going to be most useful at any given point. It could also just be fun very, very casually. If you enter an area and like, oh no, everything's immune to fire or resistant to fire, let's just head back to a town and teach her, wind magic or earth magic instead. So we're going to be doing that, and then we go pick up the pocket watch from the other teacher that we were asked to talk to. We use the casual time travel magic to fix up the library. Let's see, I'm going to go there. And one of the books ended up not restacking itself on the bookshelf, so we interacted with it, and we sort of continued our conversation with the disembodied voice, which told us that we should be looking around for a sealed library. So we started asking around about that, and while we're asking around about that, let's also stop off at the magic shop to get some better spells for Cecilia. Another interesting thing about the magic system in this game is you can rename spells. When you bind a spell, you can rename it to kind of whatever you want. It helps to sort of personalize the run, if you want to do that. But we learned some better spells for Cecilia's opening sequence, and then we're going to do what we need to do to get access to the sealed library, which pretty much just involves moving these statues around in the courtyard so that they're facing each other, and then we're going to use one of Cecilia's tools called the teardrop in between the statues, and that's going to open up the sealed library to us. Yeah, you could name the spells whatever you want. I think for fun I am going to rename a spell kind of later on. Actually, at the end of Cecilia's opening sequence, now that I think about it. Just because doing so will be really, really funny for the end boss, should they cast it. Hey, Shentok, thanks for the luck. Hope you're doing well. So now we enter the sealed library, which is the opening dungeon for Cecilia. And again, with a little bit of luck, we might end up being level 2 for her boss, but it's not necessary. It does just make it a lot more easy to pull off, because you can just have Cecilia auto-battle at level 2 and win. But it is kind of going to depend on the random encounters we get along the way. Never mind, we are not going to get level 2 along the way. Because this is, it's nice, an easy encounter, and it was a preemptive, so I could have just freely run away. But even if we got the ideal encounters for the second and third encounter that we're going to get, I think we're still going to be like 2 experience off level 2. So that's fine. Although, this is the earliest I've ever gotten a second encounter here, so we might end up with a 4th encounter, which is very rare, but does happen. So maybe we'll end up at level 2. Yeah, they are evil books. I bet they've got a lot of math in them. So that's why we're taking out all the books. Just no math. In In fact, we're so anti-book that we're going to be picking up a few books around this big library room and then throwing them into the fire. I believe this book is Geometry. Okay, so we got hit with the disease status effect. The disease status effect makes us not able to heal ourselves, which is why when we were Jack and went to Adelheid, among the consumable items that we picked up, one of the things we picked up was medicine, because that allows us to cure ourselves of the diseased status effect. All right, so there went Geometry, here's Trig, and I believe this one's Pre-Calc. Just a variety of math books. So yeah, 4th encounter. But level 2 basically just means free book, or free boss fight. You're excited about Pre-Calc? Oh no. Let's see, so I need to set up the inventory for shenanigans. We don't need to heal here, but we will need to heal in combat, so we'll use that. So what you've seen me do in the inventory, both right before the magic shop and there, is setting up for a glitch that we're going to do later that is going to cause an underflow in our inventory for items that we're going to want a lot of throughout the run, in particular the apples. Alright, but we're level 2, so we can just auto-battle Cecilia, or Antares, to go all out, and what she'll do is sort of act according to the kind of auto-battle that you set her up for. And the way we've got things set up, she'll just be casting Freeze every turn, and this boss only has 300 hit points. Just like the boss for Rudy's opening segment, it can only do 2 things: a regular attack, which we want to see because it does less damage and we can counterattack, or it has a stronger attack, which will do more damage, but at level 2 we're pretty safe. We'll need to remember to take Cecilia off of auto battle before the next fight that we need to take. That is Book Monster. And that also is pretty much the end of Cecilia's opening sequence. We're going to stop off before we actually leave with, we're going to stop off at the magic shop and rearrange her spells a little bit. Nothing wrong with being surrounded by books. That is, well, not lying in bed, but I'm usually surrounded by books. So it turns out the voice that Cecilia was having a conversation with is the guardian one of the guardians of Filgaia, known as Stoldark, the sort of turtle-based guardian. And as a sort of reward for freeing it from the sealed library, it rewards us with the Water Rune, which is an equipable sort of slot for all the characters. And throughout the game, we end up getting, normally at least, a whole bunch of runes, and they represent various guardians and deities and so on. And the runes are equipable, so they do boost our stats a little bit. And they also act as the game's sort of summoning mechanic. Once you've filled up your force bar enough, you can summon a monster or summon a guardian by using the rune. And, you know, it's always nice to have some summons. And then we want sleep. And I am gonna have some fun and just rename the sleep spell Baka, because the way that we're going to set up for the final boss, which is the only boss in the game that we're going to be fighting in the run that can cast sleep on us, we will end up being immune to sleep. So it'll just be funny when it casts the sleep spell, and whatever you rename the spell, monsters who cast that spell use the name you give it, which is something that I learned very recently, because I don't usually rename the spells. So I decided for this run, we'll just add a little bit of extra humor to it by renaming the spell. So we're done with Cecilia's opening sequence, and now this is where the game would more or less direct all of the characters to Adelheid, and we've already taken Jack there, and we're going to take Cecilia there, but we're going to leave Rudy alone. As far as this speedrun category is concerned, Rudy isn't really going to be useful as a character that we take with us through the game. Rudy is pretty much going to be used for getting Jack and Cecilia where they need to be. We take Cecilia to Adelheid. Now that all of the characters' opening sequences have happened, when we get into Adelheid, these NPCs come in and say the earthquake that was caused during Rudy's opening sequence dislodged some stuff in the cave known as Lilithia's tomb, where an excavation was happening, and now there are some hurt excavators and some monsters are loose. So we end up talking to the head of the excavation team, who hires us to go deal with the monsters. And if we were to try and go into the tomb without all the three characters, we wouldn't be able to get very far. This is the game sort of requiring us to have the characters interact and form a party. We're kind of going to ignore that. We're just going to make a party with Jack and Cecilia, and now a whole bunch of cheating begins. Yeah, the Wild Arms soundtrack is amazing. And on my channel, at least, I have said this more than a fair number of times, but the number one thing that helps me decide if I'm going to follow up with learning a speedrun is the soundtrack of the game that I'm considering learning to run for. Because if I'm going to be listening to the soundtrack 10 million times, I want it to be the best music that video games have to offer. Can we get out of bounds properly? Alright, so yeah, there we started to cheat. I just sneaked out of bounds myself, and I'm actually very happy that I'm getting these first try while talking and distracting myself, which is not something I should be doing. But that was really cool. So what we're doing to sneak out of bounds there is we're gonna run... Oh, actually, hold on a sec. I need to kind of pay attention to what I'm doing here. Okay. So I'm running to the trigger point that would move us to another room in the dungeon, and I'm timing the character select and character tool switch at the right time, and that overrides the game registering that we've passed the trigger point to move us to another area, and we end up sneaking out of bounds. You can actually accomplish the same thing if you happen to get into an encounter on the right pixel as you're moving between rooms as well, which is more or less how this out-of-bounds trick was discovered. So once we are out of bounds, we can move around to get to where we need to go. What I'm doing now in this combat, and thankfully this is one of the better combats to get, is the inventory underflow glitching that I alluded to earlier. We're taking advantage of how this game treats items in the inventory and how it registers characters using consumable items in combat to trick it into basically subtracting 1, representing the item, the consumable item that we're using in combat, from a slot in the inventory that it, because of us moving things around, yeah, we're actually good. We can run away. It thinks are now different items. So we underflow from basically a stack of 0 Mystic Apples or Crest Grafts or whatever to the maximum value of 255, which is a glitch in a few ways. I mean, for one, it's just an underflow. The game has a hard cap at 99 items in a stack. You're never supposed to have more than 99. You're also never supposed to have more than one stack of items. If you have 99, say, power apples, and you were to get another one from a treasure chest or something, the game will just tell you, no, you can't have any more. So now we've also glitched the inventory by having 2 stacks of the same kind of item, which is going to help us underflow the inventory more easily in the future through shops, rather than having to do it in combat. But now that we have max stacks of these permanent stat boosting items, we're just going to have our characters have a lot of apples. They're just going to be eating a whole bunch. Kind of like Final Fantasy IV inventory glitches. I guess. I admit I'm not as familiar with Final Fantasy IV glitches, despite really loving Free Enterprise. So yeah, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. Oh, wait. Oh, and now that I'm not talking, I'm not getting it. Cool, good stuff. There we go. Yeesh. And we're bonking on walls. Okay, there we go. Oh, it's the only way I know how to play the game. Alright, let's, take care of this by fighting it rather than trying to run away. The rat monkey encounters in this area are kind of the hardest to run away from. They're at a higher level than other monsters, and we're kind of under-leveled, so we would fail to run away so much. So, better to just do thousands of damage to them with our newfound sorcery stat. I gotta move a little carefully here. I might be a little too far to the right. Okay, there we go. So that out of bounds is a little different than what we were doing to sort of sneak to the end of rooms that were barricaded by bombable rocks that we don't have bombs to blow up. The reason that out of bounds worked, that took us to a very different room that we didn't see an entrance to, is because where the camera is sort of located in the game, there's an area around where the camera's centered that tells the game which sort of triggers are potentially active. And the game also loads in the entire dungeon map when you enter a dungeon. So that room that we were in just happens to have the next room on the map close enough that we can enter that door by sneaking out of bounds. So we more or less sneak to the end of the dungeon. We open the door to the back of the ruins, and there's a big old turtle there. And Cecilia just one-shots it. Thanks to the boosted sorcery stat from a stack of Mystic Apples and equipping the Water Rune, Cecilia's guaranteed to one-shot the monster with the Valkyrie spell. So, we go to the back of the cave, and it turns out there's a big golem there, an ancient golem in relatively pristine condition, too, and this is what the excavation team was here looking for. So we're going to go report this to Professor Emma, the lead of the excavation team, and she's going to take it from here.
Are we going to be in cutscenes for a little bit so I can read a little bit?
Yeah, I was actually just about to say that this is going to be a good time for reading donations or talking about the charity, so go right ahead.
Fantastic. You are watching Speedrun Ragnarok 2022, hosted by the RPG Valkyries. The RPG Valkyries are an inclusive group of female and femme-leading speedrunners who all love and run RPGs. If you'd like to join the Discord, please use the Discord command in chat for the link. And the Discord is open to all people and all genders. And Speedrun Ragnarok is proud to support Take This again for this event. Take This helps people in the gaming community suffering from mental illness by letting them know they are not alone in their struggles, and there are treatment options out there to help. They also provide education on mental illness so that friends, family members, and coworkers can be better allies to those who are suffering. If you want to learn more about Take This, you can go to takethis.org. In addition, we do have daily prize pools available. You can find out more about that by using the prizes command in chat. I do know that for our next run after this, for the Amtower Hitman Heartbreak speedrun, there is a prize in the daily prize pool available for that. And any donations you put that you make through Tiltify will not only go to Take This, you can also apply them to any one of a number of different incentives. Right now we have a couple of incentives open for Virtual Hide and Mystic Bell, both of which are speedruns on tomorrow's schedule, as well as some naming and character gender bid wars for Ultima 3, which again is on tomorrow's speedrunning schedule. So make sure you use the donate command in chat to get all the information about all the incentives, the polls, and where to go to donate, and use the prizes command in chat for more information about that as well.
Yeah, I would really encourage everybody to donate to the Mystic Bell incentive. The true ending for that game is very worth it, and the runner who's going to be running that game is a fantastic runner, if I might say so. So I would encourage donations to that incentive. We are finished with Lilithia's tomb. Professor Emma excavated the golem. We end up going back to Adelheid, and more or less the party thinks that, all right, they're done. So Cecilia, being the princess, heads back to the castle to go do princess things, and Jack is more or less like, all right, so you all are planning a festival for tomorrow to show off a bunch of excavated artifacts. I'll stick around for the festival, but then I'm gonna head off and do my own thing. Incidentally, as we slept in the inn there, the most important glitch of the game just happened. Or not the most important glitch, but sort of the most important code was just run in the game. You see, before now, we couldn't freely switch between characters outside of the save point, birds in town, or if they were already in a party with us. But since the game expects us to have finished Lilithia's tomb with a full party, it has now actually allowed us to freely switch between any characters as long as they haven't been explicitly removed from the party. And Cecilia, going back to do princess thing, could NPCs get out of the way, please? Since Cecilia went back to the castle to go do princess things, she has been explicitly removed from the party, but Rudy hasn't been. And even though he never joined the party, we can now freely switch to him, which is going to allow us to do a lot of silly, fun, cheaty things later. This is very important for the game casually because there are some dungeons in the game that the party gets separated from, and you can sort of freely switch between, and in some cases have to freely switch between to solve and open up other parts of the dungeon for other characters. So it is important that the game sort of unlocks the ability to switch between characters, even if they're not in the same party, as long as the game hasn't explicitly removed them or removed access from them. So that's a very important thing that happens sort of under the hood. But then we go with Jack and we sort of get to hang out in the festival. We do buy a small flower from an NPC vendor there. The small flowers are consumable items that boost our character's luck stat, which will come in handy at the end of the run. And then we talk to an NPC who asks us to find her son, who's sort of wandered around the festival. So we go find her son, and he's got a red balloon, and we kind of startle the kid, so let's go with the balloon. And as our eyes sort of track up to the sky, following the balloon, the sky breaks, and this is where demons invade Adelheid, and what ultimately is a very sad scene happens, because we were just talking to this kid, demons attack the town, and now that kid that we just talked to, that we were asked to go find, dies in front of us, along with a whole lot of other NPCs in town. Our job at this point is more or less to go around and fight monsters and rescue NPCs and eventually rescue Cecilia, who's surrounded by monsters as well, re-team up with her, and then rescue more citizens and take them to safety in Adelheid Castle. We are going to rescue Cecilia, but then we're going to try very, very hard to sneak out of Adelheid without doing anything that we're supposed to. So now I actually do need to focus, because if I fail this next out-of-bounds trick, it's going to be a little bit of a lengthy recovery. So going to have to be a little quiet here to focus. Okay, there we go. Despite how long that took, that's still faster than if I had messed it up and had to recover. So we sneaked out of bounds, and this is allowing us to access one of the entrance/exits to town that are otherwise guarded by monster NPC that would keep us from leaving town. So yeah, we left town. And now what we want to do is take our two teams, one with Jack and Cecilia and the other with Rudy all by his lonesome, to the next sort of story area that we're only supposed to go to after we've basically dealt with the demon invasion in Adelheid. But we haven't done that yet, so we need to use Rudy to help Jack and Cecilia sneak into this next area, because there are guards from Adelheid there who will let us know that, hey, the festival's still going on, there's some important artifacts from Adelheid there, but we're not going to let anybody through just for sort of, safety reasons, like thefty reasons, but we're going to use Rudy to help us get past the guards. Even though you can see all the teams on the overworld, inside these little areas, you won't be able to see the party of just Rudy, but his hitbox will still be there, and I think that's a good place to put him. And what we're going to do is we're going to bounce off his hitbox to allow us to bypass the trigger that would get the guards to push us back and not enter the mountain pass here. And I did not run correctly. That's cool. There we go. Alright, and now things are about to get very weird looking, and I kind of need to focus a little bit on it, so I'm going to do a thing kind of quietly before I explain a thing. So sort of sit tight. Alright, that part's done. Still got a little bit more to do, though. Yep, we switch to Jack here. Back to Rudy, and then a little bit closer to Adelheid before switching back to Cecilia for the last time. There we go. Cool. Alright, so what I did there is, after sneaking into the mountain pass, I ended up interacting with a key item, a tool, that's for Jack, actually, the lighter. And we did this with a party of 2, not a party of 3. And the game doesn't really know how to handle that. So it introduced into the party this Hollow Man third character, who does enter the party with, like, impossible things equipped, like heal berries and mega berries and so on. If we unequip the rune item from that character, this corrupts... I didn't mean to read the rules here. This actually corrupts where the game thinks Cecilia is. So we switch over to Cecilia, and she ends up in the Elo world that is much, much later in the game. But she's so far out of bounds that the game doesn't know how to load in the tile set properly, so that's why it looked all funky there. We then run Cecilia so that she's much closer to inbounds, so that when we switch to Rudy and then back to Cecilia, the game knows what tile set to load in and how. But we then move Cecilia around in a particular way, so that we switch to Rudy and switch back to Jack, which has moved him around in the mountain pass, because even though the game has corrupted where it thinks Cecilia is, it still recognizes that Jack, despite being in a party with Cecilia, is in Filgaia and is in the mountain pass. The game is still registering both Jack and Cecilia as sharing the same X and Y coordinates, they're just in different dimensions. So we move Jack around a little bit, and then party swap back to Rudy and then Cecilia, so that we can get Cecilia where she needs to be, while at the same time moving Rudy back to Adelheid to sneak into the fairgrounds to play the mole-catching game in the fairgrounds, which for some reason is still active. And then we switch parties again when the timer for the mole game reaches 0. This, for some reason, warps the party of Jack and Cecilia around in a predictable way to where they need to be for us to progress in the speedrun to this town of Rosetta Town. So this is a town, so we can go to the shop. We can underflow our stack of apples again, this time by selling 2 apples from the second stack of apples in our inventory, and the game, never expecting us to have more than 1 stack of any item, will basically subtract 2 from the first stack of mystic apples and power apples and so on that it detects. And just like 0 minus 1 is 255, 1 minus 2 is 255. So at this point, we're just going to be kind of mashing apples for a little while, and then we're going to buy some better equipment for Jack and Cecilia. And then I sold a lot of extra stuff in the inventory just to make the inventory a little cleaner to see, because, you know, it's just nice. We don't really need any more agility apples, so that's fine. We sell a whole bunch of them so that we get a ton of money, and then we buy better equipment for our party. This is mostly... Oh yeah, if you want to read some
while you're shopping?
Yeah, if you want to read something out, go for it.
I've got a $125 donation from Nori, who says, had to donate during my good friend Reiko's run, putting this to all dungeons and virtual Hydelide because we need more low FPS glory. Good luck on the remainder of the run, Reiko, and because I know you're thinking it, no you! Then less than 3 heart emoji.
That's funny, because I was thinking, man, I'm really killing this run. So thanks, Nori. Thank you so much, Nori. I do appreciate that. But yeah, after we're done shopping in there, we quickly pop off to the magic shop to get a safety spell for the final boss, Awaken, which when cast will grant party-wide immunity for the entire combat to the sleep status effect. We then also pick up a key item that's hidden in a barrel called the 1 Jella coin, also known throughout the series as the Gimmel coin, which is got a bit of a reputation in the Wild Arms community as being a source of the game's bustedness. We then leave Rosetta Town, we switch back to Rudy, we play the mole-catching game again, and we're going to do another party swap to warp Jack and Cecilia basically back to Adelheid. Now we're actually going to go back to the mountain pass with Jack and Cecilia, and we're going to go through the mountain pass, just not at all how the game intends, because Adelheid is still under invasion, which means that the flag for the festival going on still hasn't been cleared for the guards to let anyone through. So we're going to have to sneak on by. We're going to do so in a very different way than we did before. We don't need Rudy for this, but we took him out of Adelheid because that way the game doesn't need to unload and reload the overworld map, so that the party switching will happen a little bit faster. And the reason I'm party switching anyways is because when you party swap, it resets the threat, how much you need to walk before you get into a random encounter. So this is one way that we do random encounter mitigation in the game. Ah, shoot. Alright, I messed that up. We're going to be sneaking through the mountain pass by running out of bounds at the entrance, and I need to kind of time it better than I did there. There we go. And since we're in the inventory menu anyways, we're going to be sneaking through using the Gimmel coin, let's use another stack of apples on our characters. I just need to be careful not to use all of them, otherwise I'll have to get into another combat to glitch in a second stack of apples again. Yeah, this sound is very common in this run category. Yeah, party apples for Cecilia there. The one Jella coin. And what this does is it effectively moves our party like 4 or 5 pixels down, which allows us to sneak past the trigger point that would move us out of the cave. This allows us to get out of bounds there. We then party swap to Rudy and party swap back to Jack and Cecilia so that the camera's reoriented around the final room of the dungeon, so that it also activates the trigger that allows us to leave the dungeon. So we sneak out that way. I actually should have just run straight down. I don't know why I did it going to the right like that. I only need to do that for the Sand River here, which we're going to sneak through in exactly the same way. There we go. To my knowledge, breaking the game is the only utility that the Gimmel coin has. If you just use it as an item throughout the game, all it does is basically just flips a coin and tells you either heads or tails. It's just sort of a nice little decorative piece in Wild Arms 1. I believe in Wild Arms 2, Gimmel coins act as like a retry if you were to game over in a combat. So they play a slightly different role there. Yeah. So we are sneaking past to the end of the Sand River, and oh look, a nice little traveling cart. Let's stop off and sell some apples so that we can get thousands more apples to feed our party. And we don't really need to move them up to 999. We only really need Cecilia to get 900 sorcery and 900 vitality, and Jack really only needs about 820 strength and 780 vitality. I'm also going to start doing a little fun thing here where I feed Cecilia power apples as a fun way to set up an alternative way to deal with the final boss. This particular route that I'm running, it's not as sort of a spectacle with this particular setup relative to the old route that would have actually Cecilia deal with the final boss on her lonesome, but even with Jack in the party, it's still kind of fun to see. So I'm gonna do it anyways. And I'm just gonna be mashing apples here, so if you've got anything you want to read off, feel free to go ahead.
Sounds good. You can Support both the charity raising money for, which is Take This, as well as get yourself some sweet Speedrun Ragnarok swag. I do have a couple of these shirts. They do look fantastic in person. But you can use the merch command in chat to get the link to the Bonfire store. There's both dark logo and light logos available for the shirts, and the logo really does look fantastic. So if you're looking to get yourself a new t-shirt or some merch, use the merch command in chat. And then you can find out more about the daily prize pools, not just for today, but for the rest of the week as well, by using the prize command in chat. There are 2 grand prizes this year. Take This is offering 1 grand prize for anybody who wants to maybe try their own hand at streaming or upgrade their current streaming setup, which includes a mic, a keyboard, and a headset. And any donation made throughout the entire marathon will enter into the drawing for that prize. And there is also a grand prize from Team 17, who made a Monster Sanctuary, which was part of the schedule earlier this week. They donated a code pack for a bunch of their other Team 17 games. Off the top of my head, I know that I don't know what's actually in the list, but I know Team 17 games include the Worms series, Worms Armageddon, a game I speedrun, which is Worms Golf, which is fantastic. That is definitely a top tier golf game if you're looking for something new to try there. But fantastic prize packs available. Again, you can use the prizes command in chat for that, and donate with the donate command in chat.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, Monster Sanctuary is a fantastic game, and it was a great speedrun earlier in the week. So that is a really cool prize. All right, so after we're done giving our characters probably an unhealthy amount of apples, really, we head to the next town, which is the ship graveyard. This is... we end up interacting... Oh, shoot, come on. Mash better. There we go. We end up talking to an NPC who says, hey, I used to be a dream chaser like you, but I ended up going into the Pleasing Gardens with my wife, who... Actually, hold on a sec. Ah, shoot, and I messed it up. And unfortunately, she didn't make it out, and I lost the ability to walk. I'd like to give her a proper burial. Would you mind going into the Pleasing Gardens to retrieve her lost bracelet? So now we need to find the Pleasing Gardens and go through it. Shoot, messed it up again. This is a very hard visual cue to be paying attention to. The Pleasing Gardens is annoying because it is a dungeon that moves around the desert. However, I did discover, or at least I was one of several runners who independently discovered, that the Pleasing Gardens starts in exactly the same location whenever you enter the overworld, before it starts moving around. So if you know where that is, you can party swap to get there. Okay. Go out of bounds that way. Actually, you say that as a joke, but that is actually kind of what my visual cue is. It is based on where the character's foot is relative to some sand there. I just wasn't paying attention as much as I should be. There are usually some nice visual cues to know where to line your character up before you start trying to go out of bounds. In most of the cases where you're trying to run through a door like this, it's when you can no longer see the character's shoes. Okay, so we did an out of bounds and then a camera switch to end up near Jack's next key item, the grappling hook. We then go out of bounds again to allow us to sneak through to the end of the dungeon to get the bracelet that the NPC had asked us to go retrieve. And then we escape the Pleasing Gardens. And I have to say, despite messing that up, I did way better in the Pleasing Gardens this time than a few weeks ago when I ran this for Questing for Glory. And that was because when I ran this for Questing for Glory, I didn't really memorize what the visual cue was to find the Pleasing Gardens, and then I got so nervous about it that I kept messing up. So this one went a lot better. done with the Pleasing Gardens, so we can return the bracelet to Dan. And this is an important story moment for Jack's character arc, because he's been going around looking for power so that he can exact revenge, and he learns from Dan that real power, and therefore real courage, is less about using your power for sort of selfish reasons like revenge, but use it to protect the things you care about. And this unlocks Jack's third Force ability, which is called Sonic Vision. And Sonic Vision's really, really nice. It's just a really strong, like, critical hit. And I don't know why I'm bonking into walls there. It's just bad movement on my part. We're also going to take a quick pit stop off at the equipment shop to buy the Chic Bolero, which is an item that's going to be necessary to set up for the fun alternate way to deal with the final boss. Not necessary if you're going for the best times. And then I'm also going to switch to Cecilia here just for a nice little visual contrast that sort of amuses me every time it happens. There's no real reason to do it. But Cecilia actually has multiple sprites throughout the game, 2 of which you use when you're in control of her. This sort of like school robes, white outfit that she's got on, and long hair. And then a sprite that she uses for the rest of the game, basically, after the invasion of Adelheid is dealt with. She ends up cutting her hair and then dressing in a more adventurer-style outfit that we'll see on the screen here. More dark colors and greens. So, and she's that way in the cutscenes, but as soon as we take control of her, she switches back. So I like that little visual thing. And now I need to set up for this. And let's do that. There we go. Alright, and now this is the last little bit of apples that we need to give our characters. And it's just convenient to do it this way since we have to go into the inventory anyways. So we kind of spread out giving the apples when it's convenient for us to be going into the inventory menu to begin with. We do an out of bounds to sneak through the ghost ship, which opened up after we had dealt with the Pleasing Gardens. Just for fun, I end up getting the lucky card all the time. I've gotten into the habit for it. There's no, like, you don't need to do it. It is a little bit of a time loss, but the lucky card is an item that provides a little bit of extra safety throughout the run when you use it in combat, and I am an idiot. Alright, where's the small flowers there? Okay, so we're gonna have to do this. I did this in a practice, and silly. But we need to duplicate or underflow those small flowers, because like I said, they are an item that, that's not great. We need Jack to be not paralyzed. We need the whole team to be not paralyzed. This is not a dangerous fight. This is, because of my mistake, this is now just a longer fight than it needs to be. Yeah. I need both party members to be not paralyzed. So, Jack, if you could... There we go. Get to Condition Green, please. Condition Green basically cures you of all the status ailments that you've got. So when I picked up the lucky card, I should have used a small flower on one of the characters so that we could, in one turn, underflow it. But yeah, so the lucky card is a consumable item in combat that doubles the amount of experience and money you get. So it can be very nice. And this is the Captain Geist fight. The only annoying thing he can do is paralyze your party members. Which ended up being kind of annoying, but only because of my mistake, rather than it being a real thing that you have to concern yourself in the run. If he paralyzes both party members on that turn, you just kind of wait it out, but that rarely happens. If he paralyzes one party member, you just use the other to kill him on the second turn. He only has 8,000 hit points, so one Valkyrie from Cecilia and one attack from Jack will do it, but since we also boosted Cecilia's strength stat, an attack from her would do it too. And that sort of solves the ghost ship problem that opened up after we dealt with the Pleasing Gardens. If you go through the ghost ship casually, you will encounter a room that has 3 completely inaccessible treasure chests. These treasure chests wash up on shore in the ship graveyard, and we definitely want to pick up one of those items. Another perk of defeating the ghost ship is that Captain Bart here, who we've encountered earlier in the story if you're playing casually, is so pleased that we've helped him out of 2 big jams that he's found himself in, that he's going to give us access to his ship. Another thing that happens in this cutscene is that the trigger for Adelheid changes, or I guess the status of Adelheid changes to be in a rebuilding state because of that NPC there who asked Captain Bart, hey, I'd like to go back and help rebuild Adelheid. So now it's no longer under invasion status. So that's pretty cool. So now we have access to a ship, and we have access to those 3 treasure chests that washed up on shore. One of them has probably the best item in the game, the goat doll. The goat doll is a wearable accessory that, when worn, if you were to take lethal damage in a fight, the goat gets sacrificed instead, and you get restored an amount of health equal to, or, conditional on your vitality stat. So we really like goats. This is definitely a yes goats run. Let's also not mess this up. We then take the ship to a particular part in the sea, and then we party swap to Rudy, and then party swap back to Jack and Cecilia. And what this does is it basically removes Jack and Cecilia from the boat, and it sort of teleports the boat back to the ship graveyard. Teleport, Hyper, Saint, and Randomizer. Saint. And because we had positioned ourselves facing to the left, we can basically bonk off of the ocean to get to this isolated guild, which acts as an advanced magic shop for Cecilia to learn more advanced magic. I'm going to rename Randomizer to RNG because, oh boy, is it ever. We want the teleport spell, which allows us to teleport to any of the major locations that we've been to before, that are like safe areas, like towns. We want the hyper spell, which when cast on a character in the party doubles their attack stat, so that's really cool. The Saint spell is a holy elemental spell, a very high damage dealing one. And it's really, really handy because the second to last boss is weak to the Holy Elemental, so that's cool. And then we get Randomizer, which is anywhere between a godsend to the most annoying spell in the game. So what it does is when cast, it actually has a pre-selected list of spells it could cast, some of which you can learn normally, some of which you can't. And some of the ones that it can cast that you can't normally basically get access to are the highest damage dealing spells in the game that have, if I remember correctly, a damage multiplier of like 80, like your sorcery stat times 80. And they're all various elemental damage dealing spells. And although I believe most of the bosses in the end game, particularly the demons, have elemental resistances, taking a sorcery stat of 900 and multiplying it by 80 is it's not going to care about your resistances. It's just going to do max damage. after we get those spells, we end up going back to that same spot on the ocean. There we go. And then we're going to party swap again and then run really, really fast across the ocean to some ruins that have an ocarina in it that allows us to summon, at will, the Earth Golem character that we would normally meet throughout the course of the run that Cecilia forms a very strong emotional bond to. But we haven't done that yet, so it just sort of kind of comes out of nowhere in the speedrun. The Earth Golem is really important for a few reasons. There are some areas in the game that are only accessible via the Earth Golem, because the Earth Golem allows you to traverse shallow water, so the light blue water that I'm about to be walking on. So we need the Earth Golem to access actually kind of the final dungeon of the game, because that is one of the dungeons that is accessible only on the water. So we need the Earth Golem. We are actually going to take Rudy with the Earth Golem to this nearby town for safety saving, because things are going to get kind of dicey from here. If I mess up certain tricks, that can end in some soft locks that I'd need to reload, and there are going to be some dangerous boss fights coming up, so might as well safety save. We use a combination of the Earth Golem's hitbox and Rudy's hitbox to allow Jack to clip through those mountains. Oh, that's nice. Come on. There we go. Sorry, I just needed to see the inventory for a sec. This is one of the trickier out of bounds to run to and camera switch to. I may have messed it up. I might not have run far enough in a particular direction, so I might need to escape and do that again. Nope, we're good. Yeah, we can have this. We clip through the mountains to get to Arctica Castle, which otherwise is only accessible via the airship, because it's surrounded by mountains. And Arctica Castle is actually where Jack starts in the intro prologue, before the game events happen, where the demons attack, defeat the sort of order of knights that Jack belongs to, and captures his love interest Elmina. Throughout the course of the game, he discovers that one of the demon generals is the transformed Elmina into the demon general, the Lady Harkin. Wait, no, let me do this. And he ends up having a final duel with her in Arctica Castle in order to save her soul. So this fight and this fight alone is pretty much the only reason that we boosted Jack's vitality stat up, because he has to take this fight solo. And even with a really high vitality, he's still taking some damage. So we definitely needed him to have some boosted defense. Because of how much we boosted his defense, this is not a scary fight at all. You could actually just have him auto-attack every turn, and I didn't even mean to attack there, and be able to deal with the fight just fine. There we go. Yeah, so it turns out in the game's narrative, Jack's love interest, another member of the Knights that the Order of Knights that he was a part of, was captured by the demons when they attacked several years before the game's events happened. She was experimented on by a particularly cruel demon named Alhazad and transformed into the Lady Harkin, who is then herself sort of responsible for a lot of bloodshed and bad things. And so Jack realizes that he needs to put Elmina out of her misery because her hands are so stained with blood. So this duel here is for Elmina's soul, but unfortunately she does pass away. And this is where Jack's story arc is almost finished as far as the game's narrative is concerned, because he has now learned what real courage is. He sort of selflessly had to duel Lady Harkin in order to protect the soul of his loved one, Elmina. As a result, the Guardian of Courage grants us the Courage Rune, and Jack vows to continue fighting because he cares for all of Filgaia now, and is not just doing this out of a quest for revenge. At this point, this triggers sort of the rise of the penultimate or last dungeon of the game, depending on how you want to count it, because the last dungeon is connected to what's happening here. And this is the only real, long cutscene in the game where you don't need to do anything. So we're just watching the final dungeon rise up. So if you have anything that you want to read, any donations that have happened, feel free to go ahead and do that.
Sounds good to me. The hostess always loves long, unskippable cutscenes, even if the speedrunners generally don't.
I use this to go to the restroom most times.
Exactly. I just know you are watching Speedrun Ragnarok 2022, hosted by the RPG Valkyries, an inclusive group of female and femme-leaning speedrunners who all love and run RPGs. If you would like to join the Discord, if you're having fun at the event, you want to hang out with everybody more often, you can use the Discord command in chat. The RPG's Valkyrie Discord offers a cozy place for speedrunners of all kinds of games to chat and share stories and strategies and just generally hang out in one big, fun, cozy community. And the Discord is open to all people and all genders. And again, you can get that link through the Discord command in chat. And the event is raising money for Take This, who exists to let people know that it's okay not to be okay, and that no one is alone in their struggles with mental health, and that there is always hope for improvement. Take This seeks to decrease the stigma and increase support for mental health among game makers and players. They do a lot of work in the gaming community. The most visible thing you might see them doing at events like I see them at MagFest. That's the event that I go to. But also at gaming and other anime in gaming conventions. They offer AFK rooms, which are safe, quiet places to go to where you can have that safe space, have a quiet area there at the event. So that if you do need that space, you don't necessarily have to leave the event, go all the way back to your room to find a place to decompress or a place to get up with any sort of issues, whether they're mental health issues or any other issues that may arise. It's a fantastic service that they provide at those events. And the $10,000 goal is the approximate cost of providing one AFK room at an event like that. So that's why the goal has been set for $10,000. And any donation that you make through Tiltify, you can put that towards both a target, which are your speedrunning incentives, things like unlocking a random seed for virtual hide. It looks like the all dungeons incentive has been met, so we don't need more donations on that one, but also for the Mystic Bell incentive for tomorrow's schedule. You can also put those same donations towards any of the naming bid wars. Right now, the Ultimate 3 bid wars are open, not just for naming all 4 characters, but also choosing the gender for all 4 characters.
Let's see what I need to do. Okay. So after we finish with Arctica Castle, the tower Kadingle rises. And Kadingle is sort of a mistranslation from Kadinger, which is sort of the Sumerian word for Babylon. This is supposed to be a reference to the Tower of Babel. We safety save before heading to it, because this is the most dangerous boss fight in the run, and we didn't exactly get off to a great start. This boss fight is dangerous because there are 2 enemies, both of which with skills that can kill a character. So even though we have the Goat Doll item, and I was able to successfully duplicate it, and can therefore re-equip a character with it every turn, this could still end run. I mean, thankfully I safety saved, if things do not go my way. And boy, things are not going my way. The way to deal with this fight is to have Cecilia cast Randomizer. And although I said it can do certain things, like the highest damage dealing spells in the game, it can also do not that. And that's a shame, because that's what we need it to do. This is why we boosted Cecilia's luck stat with the small apples right before the fight, because the chance of her casting the damage dealing spells increases with better luck. Yeah, this game's sound effects, I don't think aged as well as the rest of the sounds in the game. The music has aged wonderfully. The sound effects range from cheesy to just really unusual. But yeah, so we're just kind of relying on Randomizer to help us get through this boss fight, and the bosses don't both kill Cecilia. Okay, good. This is now a safe fight, although I need to restore her magic. So this boss fight is with the demon Boomerang, who, unlike the other demons in the game, isn't really interested in, like, taking over the world or hurting people or anything like that. He's just in it for proving that he's super strong and powerful and just fighting the good fight against other really strong enemies. So he's kind of like the noble warrior antagonist. And he's joined with, in this fight, by the demon dog Luciad. Luciad we want to take out immediately, and has 16,000 hit points, so it's sort of 2 casts of Randomizer at the max damage dealing spells, but we didn't get terribly lucky there. And then an additional bit of damage for Boomerang will deal with it. So, despite the fact that that fight didn't go too well, we were able to survive it and not game over there and have to redo it. Now that we've defeated Boomerang, who is a recurring boss in this game, for kind of the final time, he's like, you've proven your worth, so even though the big bad evil guy is now sending an army of demons to stop you from following in his tracks, I'll hold them off. So he's not really on our side, but he's no longer against us. So that's kind of cool. And now we enter Ka-Dingle, and just like all of the other dungeons and caves and labyrinths and castles and everything that we went to, we're going to go out of bounds to sneak our way to the end. The Tower Ka-Dingle acts as a sort of gateway to a 1,000-year-old space colony satellite that's been orbiting Filgaia, called Malduk, that the big bad evil demon general wants to reactivate and use as a weapon to exterminate life on Filgaia. And can I get this lined up correctly? There we go. Good. So we're going to skip to the end of it to head straight to Malduk, rather than go through the entire dungeon. The sort of boss that you would fight in this room if you were to move down a bit is the demon who is responsible for capturing Elmina and transforming her into the Lady Harkin. And that sort of serves as the conclusion of Jack's character arc, because we defeat the demon and he says, I didn't defeat you out of a sense of revenge or a sense of hatred. I defeated you because I'm motivated to protect Filgaia. And that's sort of Jack coming to embody in the story the character trait of courage. For this speedrun, that's the only sort of character arc that we actually get to see beats of throughout the run. We don't really see much happening with Rudy or with Cecilia, but yeah, it's kind of nice. Now we've dealt with that and we've teleported to the space station Malduk. We're going to out of bounds again to skip to the end. I'm going to try to, at least. There we go. No, first I'm going to safety save. I had to think there because I haven't messed this one up in a while, but it is possible to mess up this particular out of bounds in a way that does soft lock the game, and I'd rather not reload and have to do the boomerang fight again. It is really hard to mess it up, so it's something I've only done while I was still learning the game and still kind of new, but rather safety save than accidentally soft lock by getting overconfident. There we go. The final room of Malduk and the first room of Malduk look identical, so that's why the room looked the same. So we do this, we do this. You don't really need to be healed. you're good. Character development skip, common speed tech. I mean, in RPGs, character development gets in the way of the speed. We only do what we must. So this is the big bad evil guy, Siegfried, the general of the demon army. He and other demons had come to Filgaia because we had unearthed, or humans had unearthed a... give you a doll. Why not? Yep. Humans had excavated a cocoon that turns out to be the mother of all demons, and so the demons had come to Filgaia to basically reclaim the cocoon of their mother. They want to basically unleash on Filgaia to turn Filgaia into their new homeworld, because their homeworld had been destroyed. That's fine. How's randomizer gonna go here? I'm gonna get an attack spell? Yeah, there we go. Alright, so this is basically the perfect Siegfried fight. Unfortunately, it turns out that in the narrative of the game, Mother actually has different plans. Mother is just this sort of impersonal, unrelenting force of destruction, and doesn't really care about the demons' desire to have a homeworld for them to live on. And sort of in the midway of the game, you defeat Mother, who Zeke let us kill, because Zeke didn't like discovering that Mother was going to basically consume all life and destroy everything, which included the demons. So he lets us destroy Mother, but Mother comes back and more or less corrupts Zeke a bit. And at this end point here, we defeat Siegfried, and then Mother comes into play to fully absorb her child, and becomes the sort of eldritch abomination that we're about to see. Mother in the process of absorbing Zeke. Sort of this divine caterpillar-looking thing. And you can see in her arm she's actually cradling the corpse of Siegfried. So this is now the boss Motherfried, and thankfully, we don't have to worry about randomizer for this fight. We can use Saint on it because Mother is weak to the Holy Elemental. And it is really, really good for us that Jack had died in the Siegfried fight, because he starts this fight with 1 hit point and will die to anything. And it's really important that he dies because of that ability right there, Als Magna. Als Magna doesn't do much damage, but it can inflict pretty much any status ailment onto characters. And just like you saw in the Captain Geist fight, because things got kind of out of hand, if the entire party is paralyzed, we can't do anything. And that includes going into their equipment menu to, say, re-equip a goat doll if we need to. However, there's a bit of a loophole. If a character's knocked out, we can sneak into their equipment menu, and then sneak our way into the paralyzed character's equipment menu to re-equip them with a goat doll. So we need Jack, or at least it's ideal for Jack to be dead for this fight. Hey, Mecha Link, thanks for the raid. Because Motherfried is actually weak to the Holy Elemental, we use that instead of Randomizer, and we do tons and tons of damage. We only need to cast it 5 times, and this ends the Motherfried fight. Normally, we would get experience for this fight, but because the Als Magna that was cast early on put the Amnesia status effect on Cecilia, if the party has the Amnesia status effect, they don't get experience from combat. But if that hadn't been the case, there would have been a pop-up. We get something like 60,000 experience points, which is kind of a weird thing, because everything in the game is telling us that's the final boss. But it's not the final boss. It's the second to last boss. We've still saved the world, though, so that's good. But there's still one thing we need to do on our way back to Filgaia. this is a little bit of a lengthy cutscene as we save the world, so if there's anything else you'd like to read or another sort of description of the Speedrun Ragnarok event or the Valks, feel free to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, we do still have quite a few incentives left to unlock. We have anti-chamber. We have an 80% showcase for anti-chamber, the random seed incentive for virtual highlight, as well as the true ending for Mystic Bell. All three of those games are on tomorrow's slate of speedruns. And there's also about a dozen polls that are open right now, but most of them, if not all of them, relate to the Ultima 3 run. There are 4 characters we're going to be using during that speedrun, and you can pick a name for all 4 characters, as well as the gender for all 4 characters. I'm missing a page here. There we go. And there's also a couple polls open for Gartic Phone, as well as the costume choice for Control. So do look through all of the polls. Again, if you do donate, that money is going to go to Take This. You can find out more about Take This at takethis.org. And your donations can go to both an incentive, any one target, as well as any one poll at the same time with the same donation.
All right, so we get the nice victory fanfare music because we saved the world. We start to teleport back to Filgaia. And we're attacked midway through. Siegfried isn't quite done with us yet. He has clawed his way back from death and from heck to attack us as the Revenge Blade Sieg Zwei, which is a mistranslation of Sieg Zwei, because I believe Zwei is a German word meaning blade or sword or something. I could be wrong there. And so now we have to deal with this clown. Absolute banger of a final boss track, though. Means 2? Ah, fair enough. Thank you, Shentok. So the way to deal with this fight normally is to attack with Jack and to cast Randomizer with Cecilia and hope that you get lucky. But the additional setup that I've done for this fight is by boosting Cecilia's strength, I'm going to deliberately inflict on the party the Berserk status effect. And I'm just going to let Cecilia and Jack wail away at the final boss. To do that, we either get super unlucky casting Randomizer, which we don't need to do, or we can do it on purpose by using Cecilia's Force ability Mystic on a piece of equipment called the Chic Bolero. Cecilia's Mystic ability basically unlocks the hidden potential of items, so it increases the restorative properties of healing items, for instance. Or, in the case of the Chic Bolero, casts the Anger status effect on the entire party, which is this game's Berserk status. And that's why I renamed the Sleep Spell Baka, because we also started this fight giving our party complete immunity to the sleep status effect, which Sieg Zwei can cast on us. Ha ha ha. Does nothing for you. The Berserk status, or the Anger status in this game, is interesting for another reason. Interesting for a reason in that you saw a little pop-up when I cast it that said, all abilities raised by 10%. That happens every turn. So their attack stat is going to get very, very high in just a matter of turns, so even if Zeke decides to heal himself with High Heal, which does max healing, 9999, it's not really gonna do much for him. Also, since we cast Berserk on the party, Silence isn't gonna do anything for you either, buddy. So now we just get to watch Jack and Cecilia wail on Sieg Zwei until he stops moving after a hit, and that will be time. Which, I think he's got something in the neighborhood of like 46,000 health, so I haven't been mathing along, but I will call out time when it happens, so I guess just be ready on that. But you can see Jack and Cecilia are both doing thousands and thousands of damage with just regular attacks. The power of Power Apples and the Anger status. And I'm just neurotically checking every turn that they've got Goat Dolls on. And that's time. of Cecilia with the final thwack across the head with her magic wand. So we've defeated Zeke Tuvai, who attacked us mid-teleport, thinking that if he didn't kill us, the disruption caused by fighting in the teleporter would wreck us asunder on our way back to Filgaia. Unfortunately for him, he's wrong. We're actually going to be teleported just outside of Ka Dingle, that is in the process of exploding because it's under a lot of stress now because we've basically wrecked Malduke. And the Earth Golem, who allowed us to get to Ka Dingle in the first place, is going to pretty much become sentient for the first time in the game, like truly sentient, and act of its own volition to protect us from the explosion, thus sacrificing itself to keep the party alive. This greatly saddens Cecilia because in the course of the game she becomes very attached to the Earth Golem, so she ends by thanking it for its sacrifice, wishing it a peaceful rest, and the promise that when it wakes up in the future it will wake up to a peaceful Filgaia. The party then return to Adelheid. Cecilia, being the princess there, has to resume royal duties, and after some time Jack and Rudy decide they need to go back out to Filgaia because there's still more to do, leaving Cecilia kind of alone. And she doesn't like that. She decides that she's going to set aside her duties as princess and live life as a normal 17-year-old girl, and so she leaves the control of the kingdom in the minister's hands and goes off, finds Jack and Rudy, and says, "I'm traveling with you now because that's what I want to do." And then the trio sort of head off into the proverbial sunset together. And that is the story of Wild Arms. Thank you all so much for all the GGs, I do appreciate that. Thank you to the RPG Valkyries for accepting this run into Speedrun Ragnarok. And thank you to all the viewers, other runners, all of the sort of behind-the-scenes contributors to this event. Everybody, you're making this an absolutely fantastic event that I'm very happy to have been a part of. I'd also like to especially shout out the Wild Arms speedrunning community. While we're a very small community, we are incredibly helpful and welcoming, and really would like more people to run any of the Wild Arms games. I'm particularly passionate about one, but there are plenty of other really great games in this franchise, and the community would love to help you learn it and cheer you on as you bop our times from the leaderboards, no doubt. So if you are interested in joining, please feel free to do so. We'd love to have you. I honestly, for the life of me, can't remember the name of the game coming up next because I'm terrible with names, but do stay tuned. There is still another amazing speedrun. It's before the Valks called Speedrun Ragnarok for today, and then do tune in tomorrow if you can for another slate of amazing speedruns. So I hope you all have a very, very wonderful rest of your day or evening or whatever it is for you, and that's going to do it for me.
Thank you for signing off. Yes, the next one's going to be Hamtaro Ham Heartbreak. So a bit of a thematic departure from a Western style JRPG to very cutesy hamsters going on fun, cute, adorable adventures. But just because it's super cute, don't think there's not a lot of meat and potatoes in this game. This game's I actually also speedrun the next game coming up, and it's also a fantastic game. Even if it is a licensed game, and sometimes people will roll their eyes at that, it's going to be a ton of fun. So make sure you stick around for the next speedrun. And again, for this event, we're proud to support Take This. Take This is a mental health nonprofit, and the main mission is to inform the gaming community about mental health issues, provide education on different disorders and prevention techniques, and reduce the overall stigma around mental illness. For more information about the charity, you can go to takethis.org. If you want to donate to Take This, as well as to any of the incentives or the polls that are available on Tiltify, you can use the donate command in chat. And we'll be back soon, setting up with Hamtaro.